Pro-abortion campaigners say they're concerned about protests being allowed to take place right outside clinics offering terminations in some parts of the country. They say the Home Office has failed to step in and stop women being targeted. Anti-abortion protesters say the demonstrations are legal and should be allowed to continue. With me this morning are pro-life campaigner Ruth Rawlins and Rachel Clark from the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, which runs a clinic targeted by demonstrators. Ladies, thank you both for joining us on the programme this morning. Talk to me about the protests.
So, in the past 18 months, about 45 clinics around the UK have been affected by protests outside. That varies from anything from 2 or 3 people who have stood outside following women up and down the road, handing out leaflets that contain false medical information, such as that abortion will give them breast cancer, that it will mean that they'll be unable to bond with their existing children, to what we saw in Finsbury Park in North London a couple of weeks ago, where you had 45 people stood outside singing hymns quite loudly, praying on their knees, pushing leaflets through car windows. We see people with cameras outside, people who are shouting that women are murderers, people with loudspeakers. So it's a big problem for a lot of our staff and a lot of the women that we see, and it happens around the country. And unfortunately, there's currently no way of dealing with that.
That's quite the image, isn't it? I wasn't aware that an abortion gave you breast cancer.
So in terms of what they're saying about the different groups, what they're doing, I think a lot of it is a false narrative in terms of, she mentioned calling women murderers. I know a lot of the pro-life groups, and often they're offering information. There are some studies that link abortion and breast cancer. And so some of these people and these vigils will present this information. However, the BPAS and Mary Stopes abortion clinics, they want to withhold this information from women. And we believe that women should have all of the facts, all of the information available to them.
I mean, I'm not aware of that study, so if you can give me the details, I'll have a look at it later on. We haven't got a lot of time to talk about that now, but I'm absolutely fascinated. Protesters have a right to voice their opinion. We can't just shut them down.
I think that there is a difference between voicing your opinion and having a political campaign in which you try and change the law and have an impact on what sort of the general population thinks, and what these protest groups want, which is access to individual women making individual legal medical choices. And what they're trying to do is approach them as they're going in at a very vulnerable time. They're compromising their confidentiality and they're drawing attention to what's going on. And I think that it's not about freedom of speech. It's about how those women interpret what's going on there, and they interpret that as harassment, alarm and distress, and that's what they tell us time and time again. And
Sorry, go on.
I would say just very quickly that the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the World Health Organization both say that abortion does not cause breast cancer. It doesn't have the mental side effects that are used in those leaflets. So I think there's a limit when you're talking about opinion, that there is proven medical fact and that there is people that disagree with abortion and will use any means to try and stop women from accessing it.
OK, well, I'm going to look that up and you're going to point out the study to me, and, you know, in the fullness of time, we'll be able to talk about it in more detail. But today, Ruth, talk to me about the fact that women are being harassed as they are at one of the most vulnerable moments of their lives.
This is simply not happening. It's not the case. And this is the
So tell me what happens. Sorry,
OK, so
me.
a typical, I mean, most of these groups, they're either doing, you know, one of 3 things. They're either praying. I think the specific one in Finsbury Park was a prayer vigil. These were Catholics. Others offer support and others offer information. And so...
What if none of those things are required by the woman involved?
Then the woman can walk on by and go in. So
So she's not prevented from walking through?
Not at all.
Okay.
And the thing that's important to note here is that our laws are already enough to protect against harassment, and often police are called to these vigils or to these demonstrations, and they are, you know, if harassment was happening, arrests would have been made, and it's simply not happening. And in terms of the Home Office and BPAS wanting to bring national buffer zones, the evidence has been presented to the Home Office already, and they said that it's not necessary because our laws already prevent this happening.
OK, Rachel, how many arrests have there been for harassment?
None, as far as we're aware. And that is not because harassment isn't happening. It's not because the women that come to us are not telling us that harassment is happening.
Why there's no arrests happening then?
Because the current law isn't sufficient and we need a new law. And that's entirely because the way that harassment law works at the current time is that you need more than one instance. You need people to be able to be willing to turn up and speak in court. And women who are going to have an abortion aren't trying to get into that. All they want is access to medical care. And I think that the thing that makes me saddest
between
is
arrest
that there
and
is
charges, though, aren't there, Rachel? So, you know, people could be arrested and that doesn't necessarily lead to a charge in some of the cases and some of the points that you're making there, but they could still be arrested if people were being harassed.
I think that
that's why I asked you how many arrests there'd been.
The police are very cautious about what they do. I think that their primary concern is that they're not accused as they would be by anti-choice groups of, infringing on their freedom of speech and their right to protest. But these groups are actually very clear that what they're doing is not a protest. They've told the court that, they've told the council that, they've told governments that actually what they're doing is trying to get direct access to women. This is not a protest and it's inappropriate to treat it like that.
They're trying to get women to not have an abortion, Ruth, is what they're doing.
We can't stop a woman
but that's
from
the whole
having an
point,
abortion.
Otherwise why would you be there? Not you specifically, but the demonstrators.
Yeah, we're there outside because BPAS or Mary Stopes are killing people's babies inside. The science is conclusive that from the point of fertilisation, you have a whole unique
very emotive
living
language.
human being. That's when life begins.
It's very emotive language.
Well, that's the scientific fact, is that life begins at conception. And therefore, every abortion intentionally dismembers, decapitates or poisons an innocent human being. And that's why people outside, because growing numbers of people are aware.
Killing people.
Don't take my word for it.
Killing people is against the law in the United Kingdom. This is not. Abortion is not against the law.
Well, don't take my word for it.
Well, that's a fact.
People are going to abortionreality.com and websites like that where they can see what happens in an abortion procedure.
Killing is against the law. Let's be aware that this is breakfast time and kids are watching, so we don't need to go into too much detail. We get the point, Ruth. Thank you.
Yeah.
People who kill somebody else go to jail. Abortion is not against the law.
You're correct. It is against the law, except in certain circumstances. That is what's happening in the law. And when it first came in 1967,
abortion
it was only in
clinics
extreme
carrying out procedures is not against the law.
It's not.
It's not.
Well, it's debatable in terms of, because a lot of the time it goes under mental health, because a lot of these are under mental health. And something that is not spoken about is that many women, it affects their mental health from having an abortion. We don't even talk about how the impacts it can have on women's mental health after having an abortion.
Rachel, some women, the balance of their mind is somewhat disturbed and they feel that their only option is to have an abortion. If they waited, if they prayed, if they turned to their God, whoever else they might want to turn to, they might have a different outcome.
So we know that the people that get in touch with us, of those people, about 20% of women don't go on to have an abortion with us. It's simply not true that once you've called the abortion clinic or you've walked through the doors that your path is set. There are many women that come to us who just want to have a discussion with qualified medical professionals who will talk to them about their options. We always see every woman that comes into us by herself, so we know that she's not under any pressure. And it's, for them, I think it's incredibly important that they're able to have that knowing that the information that they're given is proven, that it's based on medical reality, and that it's not based in the personal views of the person that's talking to them.
You started, Rachel, so Ruth, you must finish. Your final point.
Yeah, I just want to say, why is it that growing numbers of people are speaking out against abortion, are wanting to inform and support women to make better choices, to make choices that don't end the life of an innocent human being? It's because the reality of abortion is becoming clear for all to see. And, we need to support women and we need to stand for life and live in a more, a greater society for all of us.
Ruth Rawlins and Rachel Clark, thank you both for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.